In this comic book is a love story, a boy and girl in love. They get married, and after an offensively lurid description, illustrated, of course, of the couple's wedding night, the book shows how the bride murders her husband by chopping his head off with an axe. This comic book describes a sexual aberration so shocking that I couldn't mention even the scientific term on television. I think there ought to be a law against them. Tonight I'm going to show you why. There are about 60 million, that's 60 million, comic books published every month in the United States. But those figures are really quite misleading. In a minute you'll see why. Ask 10 kids where they got the comic book they're reading. Maybe 1 or 2 will tell you they bought it. The rest traded for theirs. They buy 1 book and they read 10. It's wonderful economics, but unfortunately it means that 10 times as many kids read books they never should even see. There are no economic or racial lines to the comic book threat. They reach every strata. Kids read them in the North and in the South. Stories like The Human Hyena, stories like Time to Die. They read them in living rooms in Dubuque and alleys in Manhattan. They read them in tree houses. They read them tucked into their notebooks in classrooms. And at night they dream about them. One glance is enough to tell you that this boy just got out of school for the day. And why shouldn't he be happy? Until supper time, he can do anything he wants to do. He's free. And he knows exactly how he'll while away the hours. He'll spend a nice, quiet afternoon with a comic book. I think it's important to note here that the comic book wasn't just an anti-boredom measure. He could have played baseball, but he chose the comic book instead. This is the hideout, the secret place where the gang, and I mean gang in a good sense, a group of pals, hangs out after school. It's part of growing up. It's the environment in which you learn to cooperate with your peers without interference from authority. Problems come up and you have to handle them yourselves. When I was a boy and played with the gang, we did a lot of things. We roasted potatoes and went on expeditions. We tipped over garbage cans now and then. We wrote nasty remarks about the teacher on the sidewalk. But we never spent an afternoon sitting around like this, reading. What a wonderful thing this would be if they were reading something worthwhile, something that would stimulate their desires to build and to grow. But they're not reading anything constructive. They're reading stories devoted to adultery, to sexual perversion, to horror, to the most despicable of crimes. The corpse that came to dinner. One of the wonderfully appealing things about children is that they haven't yet come to the age where reality and unreality are divorced. The emotional impact of something they read in a comic book may be much the same as a real-life situation they witness. This one's a poem. I think you should hear it. The draining rain sprays the pane tenderly. The whistling wind winds round the weeds tenderly. And I come to you with arms out wide and one thought inside of me. So I take your lips, I take your heart tenderly. Maybe you can accept this fact, maybe not. But it is a fact, and I'll prove it to you later in the program. Horror and crime comics upset kids. I'm not talking about any subtle distortion of their emotional makeup. I think that occurs too. But there's a more noticeable, immediate effect. You can see the tension develop as the story gets more gruesome. And if it's a bad one, the kid has a mass of jangled nerves by the time he's through it. He wasn't going to hit you. He just wanted to know what it would feel like to almost knock someone's brains out. This story is about a man who dissolves his own brother in a bathtub full of acid. 10 cents at your neighborhood newsstand. But it looks like I was wrong. They're not going to read all afternoon after all. They've got a great idea for a game. Everybody can play. In this kind of a game, the more the merrier. Even the little guys are invited. My gang used to huddle too. We'd try to figure out how we could build a raft to use on the river, or how to earn money for a wiener roast, or how to talk the grocer into buying uniforms for a baseball team. We usually figured it out too. Kids aren't always too realistic, but they're mighty ingenious, as you're about to see.